Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Jonny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Afternoon, beer geeks. I am delighted to say that I am back on the sauce.
Yeah, welcome to February, Jonny. You've gone through a month of hell.
Wet Feb, we're calling it.
Wet Feb. Is that a Nicki Minaj song? Maybe.
It sounds like it certainly could be. Yeah. So let's
talking
move
of wet
swiftly
Feb,
from where that could be headed. Oh God!
Just before we started this podcast, I spilt a whole fucking beer on my leather sofa. So.
Is it the beer you were saying wasn't very good either? So it's not even good smelling beer?
Well, I was about to drain pour it, and as I got up, I had the jitters a bit, and I don't know why. I'm in a bit of a flap today, having a bit of a mental week, and I just totally dropped the can onto my sofa, and then I just watched it as it soaked into the sofa. Didn't think to try and grab it. I just watched it happen. Almost like an out-of-body experience. It was odd. So my brain is not working properly today, Jonny. I've come to that assumption. Not enough beer.
I'm sorry to hear that your sofa is bearing the brunt of your brain not quite being engaged.
It's our sofa, Jonny. It's our sofa.
Oh God, it's our sofa, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, Bradley.
So it's.
We haven't got the budget to replace that.
No, we definitely haven't. And the other thing is, I don't think we've ever spilt a fucking beer on it. In all the videos we've shot on it, never spilt a beer on it. And then stupid Brad drops a can on it as he's not even drunk, just walking away from the sofa, drops it out of his hand. Anyway.
And then just stands there.
Wet arse February.
That's what we'll call it. So I've been drinking as of midnight. Is it midnight on Sunday that I did the last scene of this week's video and had a couple of beers, and I've been enjoying the build-up of alcohol samples that I've been sent during the month. Usually I spend an hour or so a week just going through the samples that we've been sent, and so I have a big array to get through this week, and I've been thoroughly enjoying doing that. It's been good fun. There was loads of variation in the alcohol-free beers that I was drinking, but as I say at the end of the video, just nothing quite. All of it is missing something beyond the alcohol and the body and the sweetness. They all miss something, and we've actually got a comment on the video, which we'll get into later, that might explain possibly what is missing, which is why I love the YouTube comments. There's always somebody that's got a clever idea in there, in amongst the trolls.
Yes. Well, everyone's a scientist on the internet as well, aren't they, Jonny?
It's true.
So, there's a lot of armchair scientists out there as well as armchair trolls.
For better or for worse, there's a lot of armchair scientists. Before we dive into this week's video, just a quick announcement that tomorrow, if you're listening to this today, tomorrow, Saturday, 6th of February 2021, is our next live show with Pressure Drop. One of my favourite breweries, one of Brad's favourite breweries, right?
Oh yeah, I love a bit of Pressure Drop, it's great stuff.
Yeah, and basically we've sold out of the Taste Along boxes. and it's a bit late to get that posted to you, but you still can pop down to your local bottle shop and pick up some pressure drop tinnies and join in the fun. We'll be having lots of IPAs, DIPAs, we've got Pilsners, we've got sour, we've got a pastry stout, loads of cool styles that we're going to be tasting through. So just if you fancy joining us, you can support your indie by just picking up some tins and joining us at 8 p.m. And the link to that live show is in the descriptions box for Le Podcast. Let's start with this video this week. What did you think of the video, Brad? Because you didn't have anything to do with it. I kind of kept that video completely secret. I wonder what your impressions were.
You did. Well, right at the beginning of it, you're walking about and you say, I don't know if Brad's going to be joining me on this. But, I didn't.
Spoiler alert.
You kept it to yourself. But do you know what? It was great, man. It was like a sort of Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock type adventure. I would have liked to have seen more of a body transformation, Jonny. If you could have only got like really fat over Christmas, like a lot of us did, it would have been really magical to see you sort of, in the opposite way to Morgan Spurlock. De-gut yourself, like, and have like, a really svelte physique post 28 days,
I did weigh myself at the start and the end, and I weighed the same. So I would have put that in the video if it had made any... Exactly. All muscle.
It's because you've got zero body fat, right? You're just ripped.
You're very kind to say that.
Beneath that plaid shirt, you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, don't you?
Yep.
Just like a really sort of honed character of a man.
Keep going. Yep. That's very much not the case. But I didn't lose any weight during it, despite doing lots of exercise as well. That one was just like a personal mission. Yeah. I was trying to get out there and do a bit more cycling because I'd let that disappear a little bit because during lockdown you feel a bit guilty. Even though it is exercise, you travel further from home than you would on a run and stuff like that. So I didn't lose any weight. Somebody said, I think somebody said on Twitter that I looked younger by the end, which I refute.
I think you looked like you had a fucking suntan, which was confusing. So
really? Well, I think that was I just had some warm lighting on because I was filming at midnight.
Like, Jonny looks great. He looks like he's been on holiday. He didn't tell me he'd been on holiday, or he's invested in a home sunbed. Maybe he's maybe he's like sort of sleeping like a vampire now. Under a sunbed.
See, I know your brain must be misfiring because there's all these compliments, except for the vampire bit coming out, which is unlike you, Bradley.
Hang on a minute, I'm pretty complimentary to you usually, mate. I love you, but
I love you too.
I thought you looked pretty good at the end of it. I was trying to work out if you looked any different. I think whoever said you might look a bit younger, I think they might have been onto something. There was definitely something about your face looked a bit fresher.
Oh God.
Maybe. I don't know. But also, alcohol kind of pickles you, doesn't it? So you would think as soon as you stop.
No, it pickles vegetables, Brad. It doesn't. Well, I don't think that works on humans.
Come on, go with me here. I tell you what, I watched a film which I wanted to watch for a while because I love Seth Rogen, but it wasn't very good. But it was called An American Pickle. And do you know anything about this film?
I know nothing about American Pickle.
It's about a guy. Have you seen the film where there's a caveman that's frozen and he wakes up in California in like, the 90s?
Great film.
Yeah. It's basically that premise, except he is an Eastern European immigrant who goes to America at the turn of the last century. Totally poor, like no money at all, works in a pickle factory, falls into a pickle vat as they are closing the factory, and somehow gets submerged in the pickle juice and wakes up a century later to discover the modern day world of Brooklyn and his great grandnephew, who is Seth Rogen, so he's playing his great granddad and himself as a sort of Brooklyn hipster. So I like the premise, but it was just not very well done. But the idea is that I was going on about is like, being pickled alive by alcohol. You could argue that a lot of British rockers have been pickled alive by alcohol.
if they had, they. I mean, this whole pickle, you'd just drown.
Yeah.
You'd drown in a vat of acid. That's one of the worst ways to go. You wouldn't wake up in Brooklyn 20 years later.
100 years later.
100 years later.
As he came out, Jonny, he wasn't pruny at all. That was, they'd had me.
They should shrink like a pickle.
They had me until the fact I was like, hang on a minute.
Why
isn't his skin all wrinkly and green? But anyway, yeah, it's a bunch of tosh. Don't watch it, it's rubbish.
Right, shall we dig into the comments of this week's video?
I guess we'd better, right? By the way, mate, honestly, such a brilliant video. Didn't have anything to do with it, personally, but I absolutely loved it. And I thought it was a wonderful sort of project to do over January. So Thanks, done, man. Jonny, well done.
Thanks. It's tough doing a video diary because you don't actually know. Most of our videos are planned out to some extent, even if you do your best to derail them. Whereas this one, I had no idea where that was going to go, no idea what was going to happen each day. And making sure that something did happen that was interesting and having thoughts was really hard. So, yeah, I'm not sure I'll do a diary video again because they're really quite stressful to do. Grueling, yeah. But I'm glad it came across well, and all the comments have been really nice, and people saying that it's good to see some sort of balanced content about it. Like I spoke to people who are very serious about the negative effects of alcohol, while I was there going but at the same time they were also very balanced and aware of it. Most of the people that work in these industries, they all drink as well. They all have a glass of wine when they've had a rough time as well. So they understand the issues they're talking about, and that's particularly why I keep going back to Andrew Mizzle, because I think he's great, and we've put him on this podcast before twice, I think now.
Yeah, great stuff.
Let's have a look at the comments. What have you got for me?
Yeah, so I mean, I know you certainly missed the whole kind of ritual and dare I say the flavour of full alcohol beers. So had an interesting comment from DavesVids7, who said, someone once told me that so much more flavour can be dissolved into alcohol than water, hence why mocktails don't have the oomph of a cocktail flavour-wise. Could this be part of the situation when stripping out alcohol from a beer?
Yeah, I saw that comment and have to confess I had zero idea about that. The one thing that I did note when I thought about this was the fact that famously vanilla extract is really alcoholic, and I think that's because they use strong alcohol to extract and store those flavours. Yeah.
You can. It's definitely something that whenever not that I've done this a lot in my life, but I've talked to cocktail makers, expert. What would you call a cocktail maker? Do you remember Jay?
A mixologist.
A mixologist. Do you remember Jay from 15?
Yeah.
So I used to talk to Jay quite a bit. He's like one of the best mixologists in the world, and he told me about. Well, I witnessed him making sort of suspensions in alcohol of like really strong flavoured stuff. So he used to routinely do like coffee ones and all kinds of different things. He was doing them under pressure and doing these kind of like weird things, and then storing the products in like alcohol basically. I guess like slow gin or whatever. It's kind of a way that mixologists would use to store these like real pungent flavours and then just add them into cocktails and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, slow gin's another great example. When we did our Christmas beer, I was extracting raisin flavour using rum. So it's definitely a thing. So if you then strip out that alcohol, either you might be stripping out the flavours as well, or when you remove the alcohol, they might not be sort of accessible to the human palate or to our noses as aroma and stuff like that. There could definitely be something to that theory that losing alcohol means we can't store as much flavour in that liquid or perceive that much flavour from it. I thought it was a great comment. I need to look into it.
I mean, there's definitely there is going to be a chemistry thing with the bonds between the part, the different things that's going on there. But like certainly, just looking at how much sugar a builder, for instance, might put in their cup of tea. You can get like pretty much the equivalent amount of sugar that would fill an empty cup into a warm, filled cup of tea. because the water is soluble. Sorry, the sugar is soluble in the hot water, and it just dissolves, and it's like magic, mate. It just goes in between the fucking particles somehow.
I remember doing that experiment at infant school. Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it?
Keep adding sugar and it didn't go over.
Yeah. So we know that sugar does that in water. So certainly flavours can penetrate into alcohol. Maybe alcohol just aids it. Definitely. I think that's definite, mate. I'm going for it. That's true.
What we need to do, there's a great YouTube channel, if you guys don't follow it, called How to Drink. I forget the name of the presenter, but he is amazing and he does lots of scientific stuff with cocktails. I reckon he'd have some insight. So I'm going to approach him and see if I could get him to maybe record a little message and explain it for the pod at some point. That would be a nice touch, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
See if he can. So my comment this week doesn't actually come from YouTube. It comes from Instagram. If you don't follow us on Instagram, we are at Craft Beer Channel. And this is Peak Drops, who I think is a home brewer up in the Lake District. And he says, and I should say before I read this out, we do have a good discussion after this, but I take exception to his original comment, which was, I hate dry January. You should support your local breweries and drink in moderation. It's not about quantity, but quality. Drink less, but of higher quality throughout the year, and you'll be happier and healthier. Now, he's 100% right about, drink less, drink better, and you'll be happier and healthier. What I take exception to is the idea that dry January doesn't help that. So one of the conclusions from the video was, dry January is an abstinence challenge. Yes, it means you don't drink for a month. But the idea of it is that once you finish, you drink less afterwards. That's literally the effect that the campaign is trying to achieve and, according to studies, does achieve. The other issue I have is that he's saying that we should be supporting local breweries. Now, every single beer that I bought, with the possible exception of the Rothaus, which is technically owned by the German state, maybe Bavarian state, every single one of those was independent and small. So at no point did I stop supporting small and independent. And my final point is, nobody, absolutely nobody, should be sacrificing their health to support business. No. You should not be saying, I need to keep drinking in January because breweries and pubs need me.
I mean, that sounds like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, I think you might be an alcoholic. It sounds like the sort of thing someone might say as a kind of an excuse to drink. Like, we should all just be drinking because it enriches our lives and it's a pleasant sort of pastime, but we shouldn't be beholden to it. That's for sure.
Exactly. And to be fair to Peak Drops, once I explained my point of view, it was a classic. I haven't watched the video, but I hate what the video is going to be. Like, well, if you watch the video, you'll see that everything that you mentioned is addressed. So I just wanted to make that super clear. Like, you can support breweries during dry January. You don't have to drink in a pub. You don't have to drink high alcohol stuff. Lots of people producing low alcohol stuff are independent and small and need your help as well. So, the inverse of that is we should be going, you shouldn't be drinking from February to December. We've got small independent low alcohol breweries we need to support. So it depends what side of the coin you're on. But yes, I mean, he is right. Drink less, drink better, be happy, be healthy is 100% correct. So props to you on that, Peak Drops. Peak props. So thanks to everybody that commented on the video. It's gone down really well, despite being a 33-minute epic. We've had lots and lots of views, lots and lots of comments, and lots of very positive comments. And on that note, also, so last Sunday, our podcast with Grant from Frightened Rabbit went live, which is a bit of a personal project on my part as well. And we've had lots of lovely emails and messages about that podcast as well, from people talking about how either Frightened Rabbit has helped them with their mental health. Like, I think a lot of people treated that band the same way that I did, as like they really helped me get through some tough times. And it was really great to see the responses to that and to the podcast, which Grant is just amazing in and so open and honest, and he's delighted with how it came out. It's been a good mental health week for me. I've had a lot of communications with lots of lovely people off the back of our content, which is what it's all about.
Beautiful.
We haven't got a recorded comment this week, but we do have a question from our Patreon Discord forum, which I thought was quite interesting. So Sam464 is his username in our Patreon forum. He said, kind of off the back of some homebrewing conversations I've been having in the forum, basically our next homebrew video, our beer is about 1% stronger than we expected. Sam464 asks, I've always wondered why breweries standardise their ABVs, such as Day are doing 8% DIPAs, but then some breweries don't, such as Polly's having a variety of DIPAs at varying strengths. Is this a business decision, or is there more to it? Like, some breweries don't have good a control over it. I certainly don't seem to have that good control over it, because I went way over. I just miscalculated. I mashed in at 67, which I thought would be high enough to leave some residual sugar behind. Not the case. The yeast absolutely ripped through all of that sugar, so we've got a pretty dry beer coming out and 1% more than we thought. Do you want to tackle that question, or shall I, Brad?
Go on, you can go for it, mate. I just think that, I think most big breweries, they do have control of it, but it's, is it a taxation thing? Are they getting within certain tax bands even?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bit of that. If we just take the UK as an example, once you're at 8%, you're paying the full amount of tax. But you can play with it. So you basically, breweries in the UK have a 0.5%, their 0.5% margin of error. So if they ever get tested, so long as they're within that 0.5% of what was on the packaging, it's legal. So that means that they have a little bit to play with, and they play with that in two ways. One is that they will, because you have to print the labels long before the beer's ready so that you can package it at the right time. So that means often you don't know what the final gravity of your beer is, and therefore the ABV, before you have to print the labels. So breweries are estimating roughly what it's going to be. And that's why that margin for error is there, because you might not know when you need to declare that percentage. The other way that they play with it is, either for neatness of it, or for tax reasons. So if you're below 2.8, there's a different tax band. If you're below 7.5, I think, there's a different tax band, and then above 7.5 is a different tax band again. So if your beer is 7.6, you might put 7.5 or 7.4 for those reasons.
Do you think it's also, do you think there's a sort of almost like a fashion type thing coming in where breweries look at trends and what's successful in other breweries, and they might up it or down it to kind of fall into line with what the market's demanding? So obviously, you might get people in Europe that drink, IPAs that are a lot weaker than they are in America, and that's just because over here the fashion or the culture or whatever's appropriate, that percentage is the dominant kind of percentage in the market.
Yeah, they might be trying to hit a parameter that's popular for sure. I personally, I think it's more that, if we're really honest, like people say, all New England IPAs taste the same, and they think that's a fault with the style. It's more because the recipes and the hops and the strength are mostly the same. Like most breweries' double IPAs, they'll only really vary the hops and the malts and the water profiles and the yeasts just a little bit. At the end of the day, the amount of alcohol they're expecting from it is exactly the same. So that's why within a brewery, all their dippers might be the same alcohol. And I think it's also across the board why a lot of these IPAs are very similar. 8% is a double IPA, 7.9% might not be in some people's eyes. So you brew it to 8%, you call all your double IPAs 8%, and it's A, going to sell, B, be relatively accurate, and C, you keep your malt beer roughly similar, so it's always going to be that strength. And I think it's, like most things, it's like a million little influences that end up with everything being kind of similar.
Indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think from outside you might not realise that that's all the thought that goes into that number. It's not just, just as you package it, you check the final gravity. That's not really how it can work. Because the last thing you want is for a beer to be in tank and tasting beautiful, and you can't package it because the labels haven't arrived. That's what really needs to be avoided. Yeah, so there you go. There's a question on ABVs. We talked about beer for quite a long time there, Bradley. That's pretty rare for the Friday 5 p.m. But yeah, we're out of time. That's almost bang on 20 minutes. Look at us.
Well, hey.
So yeah, guys, please do join us tomorrow night for the Pressure Drop live show. And next week we have a big old video coming that we've had to do a little reshoot as things have changed. It's we're nothing if not on the pulse here at the Craft Beer Channel, which is why in a couple of weeks we've also got a video about Brewdog's Aldi IPA. Always on the pulse. Anything to add, Bradders?
Only that I love the fact we've got a video about Brewdog's Aldi IPA coming out about 6 months after every other beer tuber. But that's the way we work, mate. We don't chase the headlines. We analyze shit, right?
Yeah, that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months, analysing Aldi IPA for sure.
That's it. So this is a real conundrum. Took us that long to go after it, eh?
Yeah, and the video, it's going to be all payoff, I promise you. Yeah, guys, so thanks for listening. We will catch you tomorrow night for the live show, and obviously we'll see you next Wednesday for another exciting On the Pulse episode of the Craft Beer Channel. The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer Channel. Head to youtube.com/The Craft Beer Channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeerchannel. Love and beer.